Assata Shakur, born Joanne Deborah Byron in New York, New York on July 16, 1947. Assata Shakur is an African American activist and member of the former Black Panther Party and Black Liberation Army. Between 1971 and 1973, Shakur was accused of several crimes, which was the subject of a multi-state manhunt. Between 1971 and 1973, she was being hunted down and put on trial for 7 different crimes. All of them were dismissed or she was acquitted, once with a hung jury. In 1973, in a compelling opening statement when she and co-defendant Ronald Myers stood accused of bank robbery in 1971 in Queens, New York, Shakur said, quote, "This case is just another example of what has been going on in this country. Throughout America's history, people have been imprisoned because of their political beliefs and charged with criminal acts in order to justify that imprisonment. Those who dared to speak out against the injustices in this country, both black and white, have paid dearly for their courage, sometimes with their lives." End quote. In May of 1973, Shakur was involved in a shootout on the New Jersey Turnpike in which she was accused of killing New Jersey State Trooper Werner Forrester and grievously assaulting Trooper James Harper. Black Liberation member Zaid Malik Shakur was also killed in the incident. During the incident, Shakur ended up getting shot, but she also went on trial for the incident, but the trial was a mockery. She was tried before a jury of all whites, and even though State Trooper James Harper testified that he never saw Shakur with a gun and that she was shot while holding her arms up, she was convicted of murdering State Trooper Werner Forrester and her own comrade Zaid Shakur. Due to her conviction, Assata Shakur served time in a men's prison where she was subjected to vaginal and anal strip searches and under continuous threat as a cop killer. She was able to escape with outside help in 1979, and in 1984, she fled to Cuba, which gave her political asylum. In a 1998 letter from Shakur wrote, quote, "I am a 20th century escaped slave. Because of government persecution, I was left with no other choice than to flee from political repression, racism, and violence that dominate the U.S. government's policy towards people of color. Black people, poor people in the U.S. have no real freedom of speech and very little freedom of the press." Because of her fleeing to Cuba, since May 2, 2005, the FBI has classified her as a domestic terrorist and offered a $1 million reward for assistance in her capture. On May 2, 2013, the FBI added her to the most wanted terrorist list, the first woman to ever be listed. On the same day, the New Jersey Attorney General offered to match the FBI reward, increasing the total reward for her capture to $2 million. Although she is on the U.S.'s most wanted list, Cuba refuses to extradite her. One of the reasons being because Cuba has long been a haven for African Americans who have committed what might be interpreted as political crimes. Black Panthers such as Eldridge Cleaver, Huey Newton, and Raymond Johnson all spent time in Cuba in the 1960s. At one time, it was speculated that as many as 90 African Americans were living in Cuba under asylum. Many hip-hop artists support Assata Shakur's fleeing from the U.S. because they also believe that she was falsely accused of murder. Hip-hop artist Common wrote an entire song dedicated to Assata Shakur titled "A Song for Assata," describing her trials and tribulations with the U.S. government and her fleet to Cuba. Assata Shakur is also the step-aunt and godmother to outspoken hip-hop legend Tupac Shakur. Tupac Shakur also in a way follows in his godmother's footsteps by outwardly speaking on his political views and his views about what's going on in the United States.